and welcome to the Order of the Black Hood. Now, welcome to the Order of the Bad Hair Day. All right, here's some DM tips and tricks that might help you out. And I subscribe to a lot of Facebook forums, and they usually have like the same questions over and over again. And so the first one is called cocooning, which is a DM method that could port into whatever system that you happen to be using. This takes care of game balance inside of the party. You might have one person that for whatever reason, they are more highly powered than the rest of the group, and it might be noticeable. You can get this from one player simply paying more attention and following the rules, just min-maxing up. And you also might have DM ineptitude, where the DM doesn't understand how to, how those things work. So maybe they're overpowered, but if the DM just understood the mechanics better, he'd be like, yeah, you actually can't do that, for example. And you could also have somebody a player who does a creative interpretation of dice rolls, where they roll their dice, and before anybody can see the result, they're like, that was an 18. I rolled an 18. I rolled a 20. Can I use that for my next attack? Stuff like that. And that's an entirely different topic. Tapioca? Tapicoca? All right, so cocooning is this. It's that during any given encounter, you create, without saying it out loud, a sub-encounter particularly for that person. So you might have, for example, a bunch of minions swarm that person. And that's where the term cocooning comes in. And you can also have, if the person is, for example, if they're disruptive, let's say they're a little murder hobo-y and the rest of the people are into more of a role-playing thing, then the cocooning could simply be a murder hobo-y opportunity. And as DM, you have unlimited resources. Like you could say, it's as easy to say 40 orcs as it is to say 80 orcs. It's, you don't have necessarily a limited economy. Now, I have to put a little asterisk on this, that sometimes you do have an economy. Some DMs run a game where you're strictly limited to the challenge rating or an experience point budget of what you put up against the characters, which is an absolutely terrible way to live. But if you're in that situation, there's a lot of ways around it, which has nothing to do with cocooning, but you could, first off, you could simply fudge it, like no one really counts up those experience points or whatever. You could also glom in other encounter areas. So let's say you do have a budget per encounter, but what if a gong goes off? Or what if a guard manages to escape and go warn the others? Now you can have this snowballed encounter where you can bring in more resources instead of just saying so many enemies swarm in through the door. So cocooning is really quite literally that. You take that player and you cocoon them into a separate situation. And it doesn't have to be so obvious. There's different ways to handle it too. This ties into the murder hobo issue, where usually you hear so this is a different topic, but it kind of does tie into the cocooning idea, that you, it's like, oh, the town guard arrests them, and then they stand and I'm just like, that is like so, that's so obtuse, it's so cumbersome to go through this process, and it's not really fun. You know what's fun is they accidentally kill the wrong person. That it was the brother of this not well-known, or this, what's the word I'm looking for? This infamous assassin. So now they have that guy. They killed John Wick's dog. Oops! Now you've got this other problem. And that's a great cocooning opportunity there, where it's like, look who showed up. It's like, Ronald, you killed my dog. Now you must die. So you've created a little sub-combat that just basically It just mathematically just neutralizes that person. And it's in a fun way. Maybe it like has to do with the other characters. You can really use it as a storytelling opportunity. So that is cocooning, where and by the way, do not say it out loud. Don't say, I'm cocooning this player. Just do it. Just very quietly and in the story, and as an inobvious way as humanly possible. Make it so that you sort of cancel them out in this other way. And for me, my DM style is host. I'm there to make sure that people are having a good time. How will they have a good time? They're going to live out their fantasies in a fantasy role-playing game. And it's a lot of fantasies for individuals have to do with power. That they're not powerless like maybe they are in real life. So when the DM tries to circumvent them or beat them at every opportunity, it's not great. And that's a sub-form of cocooning, which is let it ride, or as I call roll with it, R-O-L-E. That you let them have that fantasy. Let's say a player through either min-maxing or other shenanigans, and by the way, min-max, following the rules is not bad. Well, that's an entirely different argument. But what you do is you let them have it. So let's say they make their armor class really high, so that even the sub-bosses need 18, 19, 20 to hit them. It's okay. Just let that happen. And let's say it takes them 3 rounds to kill like the person with the high armor class. Just figure out what is their damage output. And then, okay, it's 40 hit points a round on average. And so you just put in something with 120 hit points. You make it fun, you make it part of the story, but you let that creature basically fail all their attack rolls. And it's okay, just be like, oh, he misses, somehow he can't get through your armor. You're too incredibly artfully dodgeful to be hit by this person. Their attacks seem slow and clumsy. Let the person have their fantasy and have their fun. And as long as the other people are all having fun as well, because you're an expert DM and you're running 2 encounters at the same time, one with the person that you're cocooning and one with everybody else. And again, don't make it obvious. Make it like part of the story so that it kind of makes sense. And that way that person can have fun too. Story time. I had a player who got a lot of joy out of figuring out how the rules worked and making the most powerful character he could. And we were playing Rollmaster at the time, and in Rollmaster they allow doubling as many times as you like. So if you have a skill that gives you double attacks, now you have 2. And if you have a sword that doubles those attacks, you have 4 attacks. And if you have a spell on you of quickness that doubles your attacks again, now you have 8 attacks. And I think he got up to 64 attacks. And like he figured out everything that doubled the attacks. And he was like slicing and dicing. I'm like, his turn's taking like a long time, and I have these other players kind of waiting for him to be like, roll, 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 roll. And I was like, hey, tell you what, you've got 18, I think they were gnolls. I'm like, you have 18 gnolls on you. Tell me how many of them you kill. I'm going to go around the circle and then we can figure it out. And he was just happy as a clam. I just went with it. I was like, all right, this is cool. He's slicing and dicing. So we made like this great description of his flurry of silvered blades. And he's like, oh, I killed, out of the 18, I killed 16. I'm like, awesome. 20 more swarm you. You're on top of like a mountain of bodies, Conan the Barbarian style. He's like, awesome. And he was just perfectly happy doing his calculation over there by himself. And that's really the whole point. Having a good time. Everybody's having a fantasy. I love being DM because I don't have to ask permission to have things the way that I like it. And that's my personal fantasy in life is I like independence. I like to do what I like to do and not have too many questions. And so the DM gets to have a good time as well with that. So that's cocooning. I didn't get to my other topics. I'm already at 10 minutes, but I see a lot of this coming up on various channels, and that is one way to deal with interior party balance without going and talking to the person or taking away things from them. You simply rebalance it, but you key it right in, so you're rebalancing this guy, and then these other people, they're kind of making sense as well. All right, that's all I gotta say.